go to the outdoorcallradio.com, there's a player there. They can click on the player and listen. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's fine. All right, I got Facebook Live cranked up, and let me wave at everybody there. Hi, everybody. You ready to go down the rabbit hole? We're getting ready. So let's just get. Let me go ahead and start the break into the network. And Troy, you hang on for me real quick.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. All right, you guys ready? All right, everybody, welcome back to the Outdoor Call Radio app. Hope everyone's having a great Wednesday night. We're going to go down the rabbit hole, and we're going to talk about ghosts in the Midwest. You all ready to go on the Unknown Files show? Is that what we're? Yeah, that's Unknown Files. That's what we're calling this thing. That's right. All right, you got a great show lined up. We're going to have a lot of fun. Let's just go and hit it up and see what happens. All right, welcome to this week's edition of the Unknown Files show with Outdoors Dan, brought to you by our good friends out at Revelton Distillery, the official spirit of the Unknown Files show out in Osceola, Iowa. We appreciate Rob and Christy doing their amazing stuff down there. We're going to have a fun show for you tonight. I got to say, again, thank you for all the kind emails and messages and stuff. This is show 5. Of this new program that we did on the Outdoor Call Radio Network, and I appreciate all the messages and comments. And I'm having as much fun doing this as you are listening to it, I hope. And hopefully, we're going to have a lot of fun the rest of the year. So let's just head over to the phones, and we're going to visit with one of our friends, Mr. Troy Taylor, who is a prolific author. He lives over in the Illinois area. And I was just telling him off the air that this guy's got a catalog like I've never seen as far as paranormal stuff. Troy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure, buddy. My pleasure. Well, I kind of, you're almost like a neighbor because, see, I grew up in Missouri, down a little bit past St. Louis, and
Okay.
I've been on the radio down on the Big 550 down there for 25 years, and we do the show up here in Iowa too, but. Man, you've been to some of the places I used to check out 25, 30 years ago. So I kind of feel like I know you a little bit.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. So, well, we've been in touch, so that helps too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been enjoying reading all. I mean, folks, it would take me 2 hours to go and list all of his titles. I mean, if we'll let Troy tell you where you can go look him up, but he's got some great books. But Troy's an author of nearly 140 offerings on history, hauntings, true crime, the unexplained, supernatural in America, including Haunted Alton. And Alton's actually famous for another thing. That was where the Alton Giant lived, who was one of the tallest human beings in the world. Haunted St. Louis. The Devil Came to St. Louis. If you don't know what that is I would assume that's basically based on the movie The Exorcist. That's where that story originated from. He's the founder of Hauntings, American Hauntings Inc., and he's got a bunch of other things. Now, you actually have the St. Louis. You have the Exorcism of Roland Doe on Discovery Plus, and you got a book coming out, or you've got a movie deal coming out about the actual event that spawned, no pun intended, The Exorcist.
Well, we fingers crossed that the movie gets made. So It's been auctioned for. I don't remember, like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
That's how long that stuff takes. So, so I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Well, I know a little bit of that background. Probably nowhere near what you do. But hey, Eric over in Illinois, my buddy over at Luminoc, good to see you. Tony, how you doing, buddy? Good. Thank you for watching tonight. I appreciate that. That event was actually a young boy at the old Alexian Brothers Hospital. And that story is an amazing story. If you have not read what actually happened, I mean, Troy, am I exaggerating? There was some pretty weird stuff in that thing.
No, there's a lot of weird stuff. That has become probably one of my top selling books. I do about once a month. I've been doing a dinner where we have an evening where we have dinner and then people come and I do about an hour and a half presentation on the case, that kind of goes along with the book. And yeah, it's an amazing story. I mean, it started in Maryland, right outside Washington D.C.,
Mm-hmm.
with what seemed to be a haunting inside a house, all revolving around this 13-year-old boy. And eventually, the family, who were originally from St. Louis, went back to St. Louis in hopes that maybe they could shake loose whatever it was that was going on. And instead, things got worse there. And as things progressed, the priests got involved. A couple of priests got involved, and it turned into a full-blown exorcism. First at the house of the relatives in St. Louis, and then at a rectory in the city, and then finally at the Alexian Brothers Hospital, where it went on for the last couple of weeks of the whole thing. And it's they kept a daily diary of everything that happened, so it's pretty well detailed. And, I got interested in it back in the 90s before there was a whole lot of information out there about it. So back in those days, I always act like, I'm, Grandpa Jones here talking, all the, back in my day, you had to actually go out and research stuff. You couldn't just look it up on the internet. You know? So
we didn't have Google back then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did a lot of work in that stuff. And eventually I talked to pretty much everyone who was still alive that was involved in the case. Every priest that was still around, a monk from the Alexian Brothers that I talked to 4 or 5 years ago before he passed away, family, friends, neighbors of the family. I talked to, including even the boy himself, not as a boy, of course, but and I think I've talked to pretty much everyone involved at this point. And I have turned that into a book that I just updated last year after he passed away, and then was able to include some things that I had always told him I would not include as long as he was alive. So that's been one of those things that has been almost it's been a career-long project for me, and I've really enjoyed working on it. And it's an unnerving story. No matter what you believe in, all the people who were involved, who will swear to you about what they saw or what they experienced, you come away from it, with a feeling that something happened.
Yeah.
You may not believe in demons. You may not be able to say, oh, well, this kid was demonically possessed. Maybe that's not your thing, but there's no doubt that something, really shocking happened to this family, to this boy, to these priests back in 1949.
Yeah, and hey, I got to say hi to Kevin and Hank real quick. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you watching on Facebook Live. Thank you for that. Hank's my buddy down at Revelton Distillery. Was he a dentist? Was that true? He became a dentist.
He actually went to work for NASA.
Really?
Yeah, he was literally a rocket scientist. No
did he?
In fact, he had a patent on the foaming material that they put on the outside of rockets, so that when they came back into the atmosphere, they didn't burn up.
Mm-hmm.
That ceramic, but he actually invented that.
So on the heat tiles and stuff. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, so.
And and again, Troy, I'm just going off stuff I read 25, 30 years ago, but he really didn't have a recollection of what happened from what I read. Is that true?
Right. Well, they would often talk about during the priests themselves would talk about during the exorcism rituals, including one of the priests I interviewed. He would say that, everything that happened during the rituals, the next day he would have no memory of.
Gotcha.
It was just too intense. During the day he'd be fine. He'd just be an average 13-year-old kid, playing board games, reading comic books. But then at night, would become a terror when they would perform the rituals. But so when I spoke to him, oh gosh, that must have been 2005, I guess. When I spoke to him, he said one of the things he told me was that he kind of felt like that it was someone else's life, mm-hmm. because he didn't remember it, and all he knew about it was from what people told him.
Gotcha.
So he could never say that he knew what happened, just for that reason.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, folks. I encourage you to get Troy's book and read about it. There's some really cool things. It's far from the movie, but and hey, they actually sealed that floor off at Alexian Brothers Hospital after that, didn't they?
Well, they actually just the one room, just
Okay,
the room
and
where
then
the exorcism took place.
and then they
The
have to.
hallway, I mean, the rest of it was still open. It was just the room that was closed. And then in 1978, when they tore down that portion of the hospital, they were rebuilding. And in October of '78, they tore that last wing down.
Gotcha.
And when they did that, they sent in guys to salvage whatever they could out of the building before they hit the wrecking ball hit it. And that's actually how the diary that the priests kept ended up in the public eye, because there was a copy of it in that room, and it was never supposed to be released. So
Wow.
if it hadn't been for these guys from a construction crew, we probably wouldn't know the things about it that we know now, because that's how the diary first got out.
Gotcha. All right, that's cool. Well, I wasn't planning on talking about that, but after I saw your bio, I had to. I actually had to mention that because I told everybody we are going to talk about ghosts and stuff. But one of my favorite ghost stories of Illinois is Resurrection Mary. Yeah,
Mine too.
that is such a cool story. And can you tell everybody a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Resurrection Mary is kind of your classic vanishing hitchhiker story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a story most of us know. A guy driving down a road, stops, picks up a girl. She gives him an address that she needs to go to. He drives her there. When they turn into the driveway, she vanishes out the car. So he goes to the door and tells whoever answers that he just brought this girl home. And then the story goes as well, that's my daughter. She died 10 years ago in a car accident. I mean, everybody knows the story. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing about Resurrection Mary is that she's sort of the beginning of that story. I mean, that she's like the classic vanishing hitchhiker, except the difference is that Mary actually left, not only physical evidence behind, but these were real people. This wasn't just some guy, who picked her up years ago and, a cousin or somebody's, best friend's cousin's neighbor. These were real people who said that they had picked her up and had given her a ride on Archer Avenue on the southwest side.
Right there, and there's yeah, I was gonna, that cemetery is right there. Yeah.
And the story has always been linked to the Willowbrook Ballroom, which unfortunately burned down a few years ago. So that part of the story is gone. But what's interesting about researching that story is that there are real people who are, it's not just some vague, woman that maybe died and is buried in a cemetery. There are real people who became the basis for the story.
Mm-hmm.
There was a young woman named Marie Bergovi who lived in the Back of the Yards neighborhood, which is not that, but that's on the southwest side. And she was actually killed in a car accident in March of 1934. And her family buried her at Resurrection Cemetery. And within a couple of weeks, people started reporting seeing this girl on the side of the road, that she would run out from the cemetery gates and try to flag down cars. Some of the people who drove by even said that she would jump onto the running boards of their cars and try to get inside. But what made it even scarier was the fact that so many of them recognized her as Marie Bergovi, who had died a short time before. And there was even a cemetery caretaker who said that he saw this girl walking around. Now, Marie had dark hair, had a kind of a bobbed haircut, 1930s style. And she was wearing a kind of a lavender lilac colored dress. This is what this cemetery caretaker said. But he told the story to a man named John Satala, who was an undertaker on the southwest side. In fact, right in Mary's neighborhood, where she had grown up, where Marie had grown up. And he had prepared her for burial, and he had buried her in a lavender lilac colored dress. And he sounded just like her. And the people who kept seeing her on the road said the same thing. Now, I know that's not exactly the story that you expect, because, we're looking for vanishing hitchhiker stories.
Right.
But the thing was, as time went on, other stories started to be told about people who were picking up a girl near the Willowbrook Ballroom or along the highway. She would get in the car, they would drive, a distance. She'd tell them, I just need to go up here, and then would disappear out in front of Resurrection Cemetery. In fact, in the late 30s, a man named, my mind just went blank.
That's all right.
This guy picked her up at a dance that he was at the Liberty Grove Hall. and he spent the evening with her, and they spent some time together. Jerry Palis was his name, and he was a young guy at the time. I actually interviewed him when he was older, but anyway, he said he picked this girl up, and she asked for a ride home. He said she was a pretty blonde girl, and picked her up, gave her a ride. They were heading toward the southwest side. They were on Archer Avenue, and she said that she needed to stop here, that he could let her out. So he pulled over to the side of the road. And there were some apartment buildings over on the right-hand side. And he said, listen, I can drive you around the rest of the way. You don't have to get out here and cut through this backyard. And she said, oh, that's okay. Where I'm going, you can't go. And then she got out of the car, and instead of going toward the apartment, she ran across the road, and Jerry realized they had parked right in front of Resurrection Cemetery. She ran to the gates, and she disappeared. Now, Jerry told and retold this story probably 1,000 times. It never got rich, never got famous. He had no reason to make the story up. And he swore to me that it actually happened. So now we've got a dark-headed girl and we've got a blonde girl who are both doing different things. Yet the stories of Resurrection Mary both say that whoever the ghost is, she does both of those things. So my thing has always been that I think there is more than one girl who is Resurrection Mary. There was a girl named Mary Miskowski who lived pretty close by Marie Rogovi, actually, who died in the 30s. She was actually hit on Halloween night on her way to a party, to a costume party, and was run over by a car in the road. And I actually had gotten a call from a woman, gosh, this must have been around, mid-2000s, I guess. And she said, I want you to talk to my mom. Here's her number. And she said, I want you to talk to my mom because Resurrection Mary was my mom's babysitter.
Really?
Like, okay. So I call, and she tells me about Mary Miskowski. And she said, you really need to talk to my brother because Mary was our babysitter and his babysitter too, but he has more of a story to tell you. So I called her brother, and he said that after World War II, he had gone in the service, he'd served during the war, and after he came home, that he was driving down Archer Avenue one night, passing the cemetery, and saw a woman on the side of the road, slowed down, take a look at her, and it was Mary Miskowski, who'd been, by that time, dead for 15 years.
But he recognized
her. He remembered her from when he was a kid.
Wow.
So he was sure that she is one of them, and maybe she is. I don't know, but it's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Especially when you add in the incident that happened in August of 1976 when a guy was driving past the cemetery and saw a woman behind the gates, and she was looking out, like holding onto the gates, peering out toward the road, and he thought that someone had gotten stuck in the cemetery after he closed at night. So he went down to the police station, which was just right down the street, and there is a police report about this. Went in, told them that there was somebody stuck in the cemetery, so they sent a patrol car out. When the patrol car got there, they shined lights around, they hollered, they honked their horn, but there was nobody around. And then they realized that whoever had been seen by this motorist had somehow maybe let themselves out of the cemetery because they noticed that two of the bars had actually been bent and burned with heat. In fact, so hot there were fingerprints, small fingerprints, imprinted in the metal bars of the cemetery fence.
And that's actually
I've
in the
photographs of it. Yeah, you can see the fingerprints.
That's crazy.
And one of the guys talked about it and ended up on that. I don't know if you probably don't remember this show, but there was a show called That's Incredible.
Oh, I remember.
Back in the early 80s. Yeah. It was actually on the show. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 59, Troy. So you're.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This. Well, I'll be 59 Friday, but right
up your alley.
It's
happy birthday 2 days early.
Well, thank you. Well, see, that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy doing this because I've always had a fascination, or I've always loved a good ghost story or Bigfoot, UFO stuff, and a long time ago, I actually went to several authentic or supposedly really haunted houses, and I'll talk to you a couple of them tonight that you probably are very familiar with. But I had two things happen to me. I never saw anything, but I did have a couple things happen to me that kind of freaked me out. But
I want to hear about these places that we've both been to.
That's what I want to hear. Okay, well, one's the Lent Mansion. I'm sure you've been in there.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent the night in
Wrote a
there.
book on the limbs.
Yeah, I spent the night in there with some media people 40 years ago, 35, 40 years ago.
Cool.
And then the other house that really kind of freaked me out was down in Equality, Illinois. It's the old slave house. Yeah.
Dude, you are like the only we must be like the oldest people still doing this stuff, because there are so few people who have actually been to the old slave house. I almost like grew up there.
Yeah.
My dad had family down in Murfreesboro, and so we used to go down quite a bit. And so then we'd end up over at the old slave house. We used to go there all the time when I was a kid.
Uh-huh.
And I got to know the folks that owned it last pretty well. I used to go there a lot and just kind of visit with them and stuff. And the Sisks had that place for a long time.
Yeah, George, wasn't it? George, wasn't it?
Yeah, George.
Yeah.
And they finally just said, we're just too old for this. We can't keep it up. And his wife had some health problems and stuff. And so they just decided to sell it. And there for a while, it was going to go up for sale to, there was a country singer going to buy it for a while, and then finally the state bought it, and it's been closed ever since.
Yeah, that was a weird.
There's hope. There is some hope, though.
That place, I read about that, and I was going to write a book called The Hauntings of October. And I'm not a writer. I mean, I have a hard enough time speaking, to be honest with you. So I got lucky in being a broadcaster for 25 years. But I went to some really cool places, and the old slave house was one of the first ones I went to. And I just hopped in the truck and I drove down there. And
I think there's a lot of people probably don't even know the history behind
it.
When you say it, people don't even realize what it is.
It's actually a very tragic story.
It is.
Yeah, there was a family there that had they owned a salt mine, if I remember right.
Right, John Crenshaw.
Yeah,
and he and his family owned the salt that leads to the salt tracks
in
southern Illinois, and they couldn't get anybody to work them.
Yeah, so he was bringing slaves up under he was doing it underhanded.
No, actually, he did it legally.
Was he? I thought they were sneaking him in.
From Kentucky. Well, that became part of the problem.
Okay.
He was able to lease slaves from Kentucky and bring them in to work the Illinois mines, and then he started what they call the reverse Underground Railroad.
Right. They had
kidnapping slaves from down south and bringing them to the old slave house.
Yeah, they had a tunnel from the Saline River there. Yeah, and they would bring them in and he kept them up on the third floor, and there was this one gentleman that you're using him to I don't know how else to say it, to procreate other. It's just a tragic. I mean, it's sad. I mean, it really is. But I got there and I knocked on the door. Hey, David, how's it going? And I told him what I was doing, and this was probably 90, 91 in that time. And he said, well, if you want to go upstairs and look around, go ahead. And I had a 35 millimeter camera, brand new batteries in it. I went up there and I got up to the third floor, and they had the old wood floors up there, and then they had the cells, and you could still see the chain, the metal chain loops and stuff where they had them chained. It made me cry. I teared up.
It's a tragic spot.
Yeah,
it really is. It was always so sad there.
It was it's horrible, and but one of the things, I was taking pictures, and I was shooting the rooms and stuff like that, and I took 3 pictures and then my camera died.
Oof.
Yeah, all the batteries drained, brand new batteries. Yeah, and I just had such a heavy feeling when I was up there. I just said, I'm sorry if I bothered anybody, and I'll say a prayer for you on the way home, and I got out of there. But it's a heck of a story.
It is quite a story.
Well, and what
I remember going, gosh, it must have been early 90s.
Yeah.
This time, I mean, I'd been there as a kid, and then I think I started going back as an adult. I'd say late 80s, but I was there one day by myself. There's nobody there. Mr. Sisk was sitting downstairs, and I had come in, and we'd visited for a bit, and I said, well, I'm going to go upstairs. And so off I went upstairs, and I stayed up there for quite a while, and he forgot I was there.
Oh, no.
Just slipped his mind. And he got in an accordion, and he got his accordion out, and he started playing it. And seriously, I about wet my pants. Because it was so quiet
Yeah.
that day, and then all of a sudden this eerie music starts coming through the room, and I'm like, "Holy crap!" So then I went downstairs, and I'm kind of chuckling because I realized what it was.
Uh-huh.
And I went down the stairs, and when I got down to the bottom step, he was sitting down there. And when I hit that step toward the, almost to the bottom, he jumped probably 10 feet.
Yeah.
Because he forgot I was up there.
Yeah.
So we scared each other.
Well, how I heard about
Not
that,
hard to do there.
I heard about that. I was going through some microfiche. Gosh, I haven't said that word in a long time. At a library from old newspapers about hauntings and weird stuff, and I came across a story about that place, and it was about the Marines, the guys that went.
Oh, yeah.
They served in. It was World War II, wasn't it?
Vietnam. No, it was Vietnam.
Okay. And they kept hearing about the house and how nobody could stay in the house because of all the weird noises and stuff. So they went up to the attic and tried to spend the night. And it was like 3 or 4 of them, wasn't there?
Yeah, 3 of them.
Yeah,
I believe.
and they
several.
Yeah, they didn't make it through the night. They ran screaming out of the attic and out of the house because they kept seeing apparitions and stuff coming at them.
Well, yeah, because for years and years and years, it was a big thing. It was, no one could spend the night here, and nobody did until it must have been late 70s. There was a reporter from Harrisburg, Illinois, who finally ended up spending the night up there. And he had a tape recorder just filled with weird sounds and stuff that, things he didn't hear at the time, and was scared to death. But they eventually stopped letting people up there because somebody took a kerosene lantern up there and started a fire.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
I know. So they finally stopped doing that by that time. By the time I was old enough to want to stay there by myself, they didn't let people do it anymore. So.
Yeah, well, they were super nice to me. I was just a young kid out of the service then, but it's crazy. Yeah. Hey, Troy, I need to take a real quick break. Do you mind holding through?
Nope.
All right, we'll be right back on the Unknown Files show with Mr. Taylor, and we're going to talk about some more spooky stuff when we come back. Don't go nowhere. No flippy floppy. We'll be right back.
Let's talk about a story, an Iowa story about a dream that took several years to come true in Osceola, Iowa. It's the story of Revelton Distilling Company. These fine distilled whiskeys, gins, and vodkas were born from the labor of Rob and Christina Taylor. It's amazing hearing the customers' descriptions of how unique each bottle looks and how each spirit tastes and satisfies with every sip. From the honey whiskey to the whiskey and cream, or the robust mulberry gin, American gin, or vodkas. Revelton Distilling visitors can't believe the flavor profiles the mixologists are creating at the distillery every day. Revelton Distillery is open Wednesday through Sunday in Osceola. They're located at 1400 West Clay Street, right off I-35. Revelton Distillery fine spirits are also available at your local grocery and other retailers around Iowa. Please check them out online at ReveltonDistillery.com or visit them at the distillery. If it's time to celebrate or just time to sit back and unwind, well, then it's time for a Revelton moment.
Heading on your next adventure and looking for some snacks to take? Why not pack a snack that tastes great, gives you protein, and is easy to pack? Have you heard of Soldier Boy beef jerky? Soldier Boy jerky is slow smoked in small batches to ensure generous, tender morsels that taste outstanding. Soldier Boy beef jerky offers the following flavors: sweet heat, original, maple, or peppered flavors that will satisfy you all day in the field. There's some pretty freaky stuff we're going to talk about. If you like ghost stories, don't go nowhere. Warrior Foundation. They also donate to troops that are deployed serving our country. So next time you're looking for snacks from home or on your next outdoor adventure, please remember to reach for some Soldier Boy beef jerky, available at Sportsman's Warehouse. Soldier Boy beef jerky, outstanding taste that keeps you satisfied in the field. For more information, please check us out online at www.sbjerky.com.
Heading to your favorite outdoor spot? Is your hunting, fishing, or utility knife ready for any task? Well, if you used the original Worksharp knife and tool sharpener before you left, you bet they are. The Worksharp knife and tool sharpener is designed to sharpen every knife you own. By using changeable, flexible abrasive belts, the sharpening system is able to sharpen a variety of knives, including curved and serrated knives, tonto blades, fillet knives, gut hooks, axes, and even kitchen knives. The Worksharp knife and tool sharpener does this with precision angle sharpening guides and flexible abrasive belts to ensure the proper 20-degree angle every time. Each Worksharp knife and tool sharpener is assembled in the USA by a family-owned and operated company. Customer service is always a call away. So if you love the outdoors and depend on a sharp knife, consider checking out one of the Worksharp knife and tool sharpeners or the Worksharp guided field sharpener at a store near you, or anytime at worksharptools.com. That's worksharptools.com.
Tacticam has launched the best-in-class cellular trail camera, the #1
Last
selling
one.
action camera in the industry. The new Reveal by Tacticam will change the way you scout forever. Not only is it one of the easiest to set up, but the most affordable cellular camera on the market. As you know, you educate your game and leave your scent when checking cameras in the field. With Reveal, those issues are gone. You can receive pictures in almost real time right to your app without going into the field. The Reveal offers half-second trigger speeds, detects game from up to 96 feet away in 4G and LTE wireless modules. Verizon and AT&T plans available. 24-inch LCD screen, adjustable night illumination, and data plans starting as low as $5 a month. The Reveal's world-class app allows you to set up your camera, add cameras, view and organize pictures, and much more. Again, plans starting as low as $5 a month. The new Reveal by Tacticam saves time, gas, and most importantly, helps you stop educating your game. RevealCellCam.com for more info.
All right, welcome back to the Unknown Files. Hope everyone's having a great Wednesday night all across the good old USA. We appreciate you watching us. Anita, Joe, how you doing? David, thank you. We appreciate you all on Facebook. We're visiting with Mr. Troy Taylor, who is a wonderful author who has written over 140 books on unsolved mysteries, ghost stories, and a whole bunch of other stuff, and we're very happy to be chatting with him. Troy, did I lose you? You still there?
I'm still here.
All right, there you go. You didn't hang up on me.
No.
Well, I'm excited right there. So the Limp Mansion, and that's another sad story too. I mean, can you imagine having one of the biggest breweries in the country, and then all of a sudden lose everything because of prohibition?
Yeah, and then have no one remember you for anything other than committing suicide and ghost stories. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, they were a massive, unbelievably wealthy family, who had, really introduced lager beer to not only St. Louis, but really the first makers of it in our country. And yet they're not given credit for much of anything these days. The first people to use refrigerated boxcars, the first, for the longest time, the biggest brewery in St. Louis and one of the biggest in the country. And, they built it from nothing, literally nothing, storing their beer in a cave, to cool it and to lager it, and then going on to build this massive fortune, and then, just falling apart in almost a single generation.
Yeah.
Just despair and death, and I'm sure, probably something that was in the genes as far as, depression and that kind of thing. And suicide seemed like a good idea, I suppose. So, I mean, we're nearing the anniversary of William Limp's suicide, February 13th, next Monday.
Yeah.
In 1904, he committed suicide because he had lost his, I guess, really his favorite son, or at least the son that was going to take over the business for him, had died in his 20s, and he became deeply depressed, came out of it, and then his best friend, Frederick Pabst, Pabst Blue Ribbon, died, and he just decided to kill himself, and he became the first suicide, not the first death, but the first suicide in the immediate family, and then, there would be more that followed. So, yeah, it's a tragic story. I mean, we're lucky to have the history left, the remnants of it left, when we find bottles and corkscrews and things that are part of the family, part of the brewery, today. But having the house still there is impressive.
What about
Very cool place?
I can't remember exactly, but Lavender Lil. That's when you walk into the house. They used to have the portrait on the left-hand side in that in that parlor or whatever. Did she die in the house?
No, she didn't. And that was actually Billy's, or William Jr. That was his wife. They had a very short, very messy, abusive marriage, and had a really scandalous divorce. But she was known for the fact that she loved to wear the color lavender.
Yeah.
And all her clothes would be lavender. She had, a lavender rosary, lavender on her horses, lavender carriage, and she went through a pretty messy divorce with Billy. But she actually moved out of state, ended up in New York, and she lived longer than both her ex-husband and her son.
Wow.
She outlived them both. You may be thinking of Elsa, who was Billy's sister. Now Billy committed suicide shortly after Prohibition began.
Right.
When, they pretty much lost everything. But shortly before that, his sister Elsa died, but not in the house. It was in her home in one of the private places in St. Louis. But there's a real, at least for me, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't add up about her death and her alleged suicide. It's what I like to say. I'm not convinced she committed suicide, but she did end up dead. And then one more brother, Charles, committed suicide in the house in 1949.
He was.
So it's really not a surprise that it's haunted.
Yeah, yeah. And if for everybody listening that doesn't know about the history about the house, with it being a brewery and stuff, they had a ballroom, underground ballroom, as under where Highway 55 would be out of St. Louis. It wasn't that underneath the highway, the ballroom?
Well, that started as the cave that they used to lager their beer in.
Okay.
And they ended up building the brewery on top of the cave, above it. So they stopped using the cave for lagering beer because they had all these underground cellars in the brewery, and then eventually they had artificial refrigeration by the late 1870s. So after that, they started using the cave not as a ballroom, but actually as a theater.
Gotcha.
They actually built a theater down there in one of the rooms. They put in a stage and spotlights and stuff. Some of it's still there.
Wow.
Some of the pieces of it are still there. And then they would use that to hire shows that came through St. Louis. They would give them extravagant amounts of money to come and put on command performances in their cave theater. And actually, the cave opened up into the basement of the house. And you could access the cave that way, and you could go all the way to the brewery that way. Then eventually, that cave was closed off, and they turned it into a show cave called Cherokee Cave. And there was a visitor center, and a parking lot, and everything right there that people would come in to see the cave. And then when Interstate 55 came in, they tore down the cave and closed it down. But the cave's still there.
Okay.
I mean, it's still there. In fact, if you ever get a chance to go in there, it's worth it because what's left of Cherokee Cave is all still down there. When you go to a show cave and there's all the stairs and the railings and the lights and stuff, all that stuff's still down there.
Oh, that's
and it
crazy.
comes to like a dead end, like a wall, like a concrete wall, and right on the other side of it, you can hear cars going by.
That's crazy.
Even though you're underground.
Yeah.
From the interstate, it's crazy. So, it's a pretty cool place.
Yeah, so when I was there, I had a guy from Channel 5 News and some other people, some friends of ours that wanted to go, and we took a medium with us that was kind of famous in the area for a while. And I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to get, I don't know if she's still with us or not, but super nice people. And John Pertzborn, you remember Pertzborn's people?
No, I don't.
Yeah, this was like
before my time, I think.
Yeah, this is in the 90s. So anyway, we all went there, and they were doing like a little a little seance deal and stuff, and then that was kind of weird. Nothing happened, but then we went all the way to the top floor, up in the where the little windows are.
Mm-hmm.
Now it was a restaurant when I was there.
Right, but it wasn't the bed and breakfast.
No, it was a restaurant, and we went up there, and she said that she was feeling or sensing like a small presence or something up there. She didn't know what it was, but I was the last one out of the room, and I heard when I was just getting ready to go out through the door there, I heard something go shh, and I turned around, and a bus table, the plastic tubs that you put dishes and stuff. Yeah. There was a tub up there by the window. Now those windows, you've been in that house. Those windows are they're not big enough to move anything.
No.
Now and the window was not open, but that tub had moved like 2 feet. And that was weird.
I totally believe his story. Well, I totally believe it because back when the attic was unfinished. It's all finished now. I don't know if you've been in there in the last.
Oh no, I haven't been there in 30 years. Yeah, 30 years.
Okay, well, they've turned that all into like bedrooms up there. but it didn't used to be. It was open, probably exactly like it was, when you were there.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been that long ago. And we what I always used to like to do is a group of us would go, and I would always bring, because Elsa, the Lymph's, one of the Lymph daughters, the one that died in 1920, she was very into spiritualism and was very into seances and stuff. So I always would bring like a really old, I've got a Ouija board from the teens from like 1915.
No, that's not.
And I would always bring that up there.
Yeah, that's not good, Troy.
Yeah, I know, but we bring it up there thinking, what, if somebody's going to make contact, maybe they'll do it with this old board, right?
Yeah.
So one night we were using it, nobody was, nothing was happening as usual. That's not a normal thing, not much happening. Nothing was, and then just as I wasn't at the table, I was just sort of standing around, and one of my friends says, "Okay, I'm done. Somebody else wants to take over. They can." And we heard, just like you did.
Yeah.
And there had been a candle sitting on the floor, and it slid all the way across the room, underneath the table, from one side of the room to the other.
That's crazy.
But that's not even the best one. I had these 3 young guys and their dad who would come with me one time. I had taken a group of people there, and we had gone up to the attic. It was just the 5 of us. The 3 guys are sitting at the table. Dad and I are standing over in the doorway, just kind of watching. And I can tell you exactly when it was. It was 2004 because I had just gotten this brand new, night vision camera. Remember when that was the big thing there?
Oh, sure.
2000s. Everybody had to have one. It was a hot thing. And so I had a still camera. It was a still camera, and it would take video too. And so I was taking pictures of these guys. Complete darkness, right? It's pitch black except for this little bitty candle we had on the table.
Right.
So it's just the 3 kids sitting at the table, and they're using the Ouija board, and they're talking and stuff, and they're trying to get it to do something. And I start taking pictures of them. And I thought, well, this will look cool because it's that greenish kind of glow to it, And then I take a few pictures, and then I leaned over to one of the kids' dad, and I said, "Man, take a look at this." And in the photograph, there is clearly, even though we couldn't see a thing, there's clearly someone standing next to the table where the 3 kids are.
Oh, you're kidding.
It's just a blur. No, I am not kidding.
Wow.
I will find that and send those pictures to you.
Well,
in your email.
I actually was talking about this on the Big 550 in St. Louis on like around Halloween last year, and I had a listener say that he was there for dinner or lunch or something, and they had some people that were getting married, and he sent me a picture. I don't know if I still have that or not, but it was the bride and the groom, a young couple, and then behind them there was like a black silhouette, and they said there was nobody there when they took the picture. Yeah, that's goofy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an active spot. I think it still is. Even sometimes even the ones that are really famous. They got famous for a reason. But they'll still surprise you sometimes.
Yeah, I was shaking my head on Facebook Live because I'm not messing with no Ouija board, buddy. I don't mind going and putting a recorder out or taking pictures and stuff. I bought a FLIR unit. I've got some people that have contacted me and said that they've got Bigfoot running around up here in Iowa. I said, okay, I tell you what, this spring when I get done filming my turkey hunts for the TV show, I'll go out there. I'd like to come out there with you. And this thing's good for 300 yards on a FLIR.
Well, yeah, if there's something out there, you're going to get it.
Yeah,
Right?
and and you mentioned Murfreesboro. What is that? Where the Mudman was? The
mud monster.
Yeah, the mud.
Absolutely.
What was up with that? I heard somebody was asking me about that, and I tried to find some research on it. And was that?
It was one of those kind of short-lived monster things that happened in the 70s.
So it wasn't.
There were several of them around. No, I think everybody that was down there said it was legit, including the cops.
Really?
It started off with these couple of kids went down to the Big Muddy River to go, parking. They were out on the boat ramp.
Yeah.
The car making out in the car, and they see this big hairy thing on the side, outside the car, and panic and drive away, and went straight to the police station. Come in a panic, and the chief of police said that he'd known them their whole lives. He knew they didn't make stuff up. So he sent a couple of cops out there to check it out, and they found, giant footprints, and there was a weird smell and all kinds of stuff. And then over like the next week or so, sightings started up all over town of this kind of big kind of light colored, hairy, 8 foot tall, man-like thing covered in mud, and
Uh-huh.
that's hence the name. And actually, I mean, now he's like the grand marshal of the 4th of July parade, and there's murals in town. But at the time, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of action. It was that kind of stuff in the 70s was making the newspapers a lot.
Well, see, we had Momo the Monster in Missouri.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Remember
yeah,
Momo?
That went on for. Oh sure,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was about the same time.
It was,
Yeah.
it was. All the 70s was hot for that stuff for whatever reason.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, it still is. I mean, people still love it, but that's when it really seemed to take off.
Well, that's what got me hooked when I was a kid. So, because I was like
Yeah.
10 or 13 years old back then. It was
Sure,
it was
yeah. We watched all the documentaries. Remember that?
Yeah.
Documentaries that would come out, and they actually be in the movie theater.
Yeah.
I still remember going to see like a Bigfoot documentary, at the theater.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. In Search of Noah's Ark and all that. All
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Was really hot at the time. Bermuda Triangle. That stuff.
Hey Troy, what was the place in Bell? I can't remember. I was trying to look in my old manuscript, and I can't find it in my notes. But there was a place in Belleville that was supposed to be really active, and it burnt down. But they used to.
Oh no, that was Edwardsville.
Edwardsville.
That's the 3 Mile House.
That's it,
Yeah.
the 3 Mile House,
Yeah.
and it burnt down for just out of the blue.
Yeah. They,
What was the history on that?
It was an old. It started out as an old tavern in the 1800s, and I mean, like a roadside tavern / hotel back then. And it stayed pretty popular, and then it was abandoned for a while, and then a developer bought it and decided to turn it into a kind of restaurant and a tavern. And then this husband, wife, and kids bought it, the Elliots, and they really got it up and going, and it became a really popular spot. But it was also, they were having a lot of activity as far as customers would come in, were having experiences, and the family all talked about ghosts. And it turned out that it might have been a station on the Underground Railroad. It was old enough to have been. There were tunnels in the basement, initials carved up on the beams, and one of the ghosts that they constantly reported was an African American man that was seemed benign, but they would just be around and people would see it. And it really got a lot of attention, made a lot of newspaper, again, 70s. A lot of reports national wise. There was a seance held there once, and then after that, Doug Elliott just forbid any more seances in the house because I guess things just went crazy.
Yeah.
While they were there, it was like a crew from a movie that was filming in the area, Stingray, I think. That was the movie, and they came in, and a bunch of them were, wanted to do a seance. But yeah, and then in the early '80s, it just they moved out, the place closed down, and then just one night it went up in flames.
Yeah,
nobody really knows the cause.
It had like stone. The basement was like stone.
Mm-hmm.
It had like archways and stuff. If I remember.
Yep.
Yeah, I always wanted to go there. Hey, do you know where Jerseyville, Illinois is?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy over there, that a friend of mine. His name's Dave, and he owns a Dairy Queen. And
Okay.
have you ever heard the legend of the Bailey Phantom?
I don't think so.
Okay, next time you're in Jerseyville, you go to Dairy Queen and ask for Dave Bailey and ask him to tell him about the
Dave
Bailey,
Bailey,
the
okay.
Bailey Phantom. I'm teasing.
Okay,
I'm teasing him right now. He's
Is he listening?
that's one of my that's one. He goes, Dan, I think that I'm in my studio downstairs at the house, and I've got I do hunting shows, right? So I've got deer mounts and elk and bear and everything around me. He goes, Dan, that deer mount just blinked behind you. He's always giving me trouble. That's my turkey hunting buddy. So he's something else. Hey, what about what was going on in Alton? Was it? It was.
Oh yeah, that's this coming weekend.
Yeah, you guys got what's going on so people that live in the area could know about that.
Yeah, if you're in the St. Louis or downstate area, or Jerseyville since it's close, this Saturday from 10 to 4 is our 25th annual Dead of Winter food drive. We do this every February. We put on an event. We've got speakers and things coming in, vendor room, after-hour events and stuff, and it's absolutely free to come in, hear all the speakers and stuff. The only thing we ask is the admission is a donation of some kind of canned good, perishable item, mac and cheese, socks, light bulbs, anything that the food banks can use.
That's awesome.
We planned it in February because I talked to a lot of these people when we were trying to figure out how we were going to do this. And they say, they get tons and tons of stuff at Christmas time, but by February, they're getting pretty tapped out.
Yeah.
So we do everything we can to get, and every year it gets bigger as far as how much stuff. We've been adding on speakers and making the event bigger, but really it's the generosity of the people who come. The paranormal ghost people are a very generous crowd, and they, we'll end up with a couple of tons, literally tons of food. And they had to pick it up in a big truck to get it all out of there. But it's at the Mineral Springs, the old Mineral Springs Hotel in Alton. It's downtown Alton, most haunted place in town, for one thing. But yeah, we set up in the ballroom in back and drop off a canned good, come spend the day, listen to speakers talk about ghosts and hauntings and unsolved mysteries in the paranormal. We do my co-host Cody Beck and I do a live recording of our podcast that's out of sync with the rest of the season, but it's a lot of fun. We do a live recording to kind of kick things off, and then we'll have speakers going all day. So
that's awesome.
Anybody who's in the area, we'd love to have you come on.
Yeah, that's a great cause. Now, I had a text. Somebody wanted me to ask you about the Alton Giant. Is there rumors that he's haunting in that area, or is that just
no? No, but what's interesting though, because Robert Wadlow was his name,
right?
And he was a young guy, died in his early 20s, and he was 8 feet 11 and a half inches tall, which is the tallest man of modern history that we know of, as far as that was could be checked and verified. I've seen pictures of his, like this thing with like Shaq standing next to him. Makes Shaq look like a little kid. I mean, that's how tall he was.
Wow.
But he grew up there in Alton, and that he passed away when he was young. But the Masonic Lodge that he was a member of, he was a Mason, and I mean, his ring is on display. It's like, I could put my wrist through it. It's so big. But the Masonic Lodge that he was part of, that building is haunted.
Okay.
But not to be confused with Robert's ghost. I mean, believe me, if it was him, we'd know it was him. That's for sure.
Okay. Well, they asked me about something about cobblestones. Is there like a street or something that's cobblestones in Alton?
Oh, we got a lot of streets that are original bricks.
Okay.
That date back to the 1800s. So,
all right.
we've got lots of brick streets. I mean, Alton is a very haunted town.
Yeah.
We've got the long history of death and disease and disasters, and it all adds up. All that history does.
What about the Payne Gentry house? Did you ever do anything in there?
We haven't.
Yeah.
Haven't. Yeah, no, I'm familiar with it. I know it, but I haven't ever done it.
I was there one time, and they had a spinning wheel, an old where they and there was a cold spot there, but that's the only thing that I ever saw or got
I think I've only ever been there once too.
Yeah, it's a real
years ago.
Yeah, that's a real small area. What else is going on in Illinois that would be? I know you do tours. What would be something if someone loves this kind of stuff that they could go on a tour and kind of experience some of this stuff?
Well, yeah, we've got tours. We've got tours in Alton. We've got tours in Decatur and Springfield too, as far as downstate tours go. So there's always cool places to see, and we do stuff, mostly all year round, especially in Alton. We do it all year round. We have bus tours that run all winter. We dinner events. I was talking about the St. Louis Exorcism one earlier, but I do a lot of different ones. I've got one coming up right after Valentine's Day that's like love gone wrong, like
love gone wrong,
murdered lovers and the ghosts they left behind.
Yeah.
In honor of Valentine's Day, right? So, so we do a lot of that kind of stuff, and so there's always something to see. And if somebody's over in Missouri or in the Southwest Illinois area, I mean, Alton is not that far for.
No.
And there's stuff you can do on your own. You don't have to take a tour. Come to the Mineral Springs, come see the old Alton Penitentiary or the city cemetery. There's plenty of things to see there, lots of things to do.
And Haunted St. Louis, that's one of your books? You got a series of that, don't you?
Yeah, I did. I did the book on St. Louis. Haunted St. Louis is kind of a general book, and then of course the St. Louis exorcism book, and then the book about the Lemp family, suicide and spirits.
Yeah.
But yeah, Haunted St. Louis has been a perennial. I did a new edition a couple of years ago. I had originally done it like in 1999 or something. I don't know, it was an old one.
What
And so it's fun to update those every once in a while.
we got about 6 minutes left, Troy. What about Jefferson Barracks? You got a book on the ghosts of Jefferson Barracks. I used to shoot archery there.
Actually, a buddy of mine. Yeah, a buddy of mine wrote that.
Yeah.
And I published it for him. He was with the National Guard there. Was with the engineer battalion there, and was stationed there for a few years, and with the Guard. And I got to tour. He took me on a tour of the place to show me all the places that were haunted. And then this was like August of 2001. So you'll remember what happened right after that.
Right.
That
Yeah.
got shut down, so I could not come back
Oh.
to the base anymore. But he was there for a while, and so he did a book on the history and the ghost stories in it. I included a lot of that in Haunted St. Louis too, because it's just so fascinating. That place is so old and so interesting, and there have been so many people
Well, they got
that came through there,
Yeah.
over the years. But
they got a lot of
it's got a lot of ghost stories.
they got a lot of big deer in there too.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, I used to go and shoot. I used to go in there and shoot archery tournaments in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they had an archery range out there. So, yeah, I got to tell you, this has been. I was really looking forward to doing this program with you. I really enjoyed it, and we got
Thanks
a.
for letting us plug the food drive.
Oh no! Hey, listen, you have an open invitation. Anytime you got something going on, just email me and we'll get you booked for a show.
Okay.
Because I could talk to you for a week. So, and then, hey, real quickly, what about over at? Oh gosh darn it! My brain went dead. I can't think of what I was going to ask you. Oh, down in St. Louis. Gosh darn it. I'm sorry, Cahokia Mounds. What about
Oh,
Cahokia
sure.
Mounds? Is
Yeah, I've never heard of it being haunted. I mean, people, feel that it's a mystical kind of place. One of those places that, an ancient spot kind
Yeah.
of thing. I mean, it's an interesting history behind it because we still don't really know what happened to all the people that were there. We don't know why they left and abandoned the place, but eventually they did, and we don't even know how many mounds there were originally because so many of them were destroyed over the years. But yeah, I think it's a really fascinating place, and I think it does have it's got a a feeling about it kind of thing. But I've never heard anything about it being haunted or as far as ghost stories go. But it's a cool place.
Did you ever go and do you travel like to the East Coast or West Coast and check stuff out?
Yeah, oh yeah, I have been all over the place.
All right. What about the Conjuring House? Have you ever been there?
No, I haven't been there because, there's no specific reason, but after the movie came out originally, the woman who owned it at the time got in touch with me because they were in the process of suing Warner Brothers.
Oh, really?
Because people were like just ransacking their property.
Right.
And that's when we got into, I started it with her, and then she, I believe, has passed away. But other people have kind of taken up the mantle on it. But as far as exposing the things that the Warrens said that weren't true, like
Right.
the things about Bathsheba Sherman, who was not a witch, and and didn't get hanged on the property and all this stuff. So there's a lot of inaccurate information about it. That's not to say the house isn't haunted.
Well, it's Hollywood.
Reputable,
Yeah.
but reputable people who have lived there have reported a haunting. It's just not haunted for the reason that,
Well-
the Warrens in the movie said it was.
Well, I think one of the daughters is still around. I've been trying to get a hold of
Andrea.
her. Yeah, and they said that they when they got their hair pulled and stuff, that stuff actually happened.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, she's got a legitimate story, and like I said, I don't dispute the idea that the house is haunted. It's just not haunted for the reasons they claim.
Well-
or not they, but people who came after the parents. So
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go check out this place this summer. It's an old schoolhouse, and this guy says that he gets shoved and pushed a lot. So I
Cool.
said I'm gonna go check that out with that FLIR unit and stuff, and see if anything
that's
happens.
a good idea.
But I will tell you this, and I didn't tell you. I've actually had something when I bought my last house. there was a house inspector, and I told this on the air the other night because we had a really nice lady on talking about the ghost of Gettysburg. But him and I were there. We were doing the walkthrough, the inspection, and then we were just talking by the furnace, and all of a sudden we heard a cat meow. I mean, like it was right there. And I looked at him and I said, "Did you hear that?" He goes, "Yeah, it was a cat." I go, "There's no cat here.
There's no cat.
This is an empty basement that's not even finished."
Yeah.
And we looked around, we could never find that cat. And after I moved in and finished off the house, I had my studio downstairs, and a couple times out of the side of my peripheral vision, I would see a cat walk by, and I'd look around and it'd be gone. I've had some stuff happen. That's about the extent of it, but it's crazy.
It is.
Yep. Mike Simmons said to tell you, excellent show tonight. Thank you very much. Great dialogue. Brian, thank you for watching. Kenny Cole said it was a great show. I appreciate each and every one of you for your kind words, and thank you for doing that. Troy, tell everybody if they want to purchase a book or find more information about you, how can they do that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, just go to the main website. It is AmericanHauntings.net. And just make sure you use net instead of com, and because I think you get a porn site if you use com. So use net.
We don't advocate
AmericanHauntings.net.
.net.
You can find all the books, all the events we've got coming up. The Haunted American Conference coming up in June, the Dead of Winter thing this weekend. Just a reminder again, 10 to 4 on Saturday, February 11th, Bolton, Mineral Springs Hotel. Hope to see you there.
All right. Can we get you on again?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Sure thing.
We'll touch base and try to get you on this summer sometime.
All right, man. Sounds great.
All right, Troy. Thank you so much.
Okay,
I appreciate you.
Take care, Dan.
There he goes,
All
Troy
right,
Taylor.
thanks.
Thank you, Troy. All right, that is going to wrap it up for me. It's the Unknown Files show. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Show's been brought to you in part by our good friends down at Revelton Distillery in Osceola, one of their favorite spirits here in Iowa. We'll see you next time on Facebook Live. Good night, everybody. And for everybody here on the Outdoor Coil Radio app, we will see you.